Strength, passion, crimson blades, and force lightning. The Sith form the cornerstone of the light-dark duality at the very heart of the Star Wars franchise. While we have only followed the story of a few key Sith Lords in the films themselves, the expanded universe has Sith lurking under every rock, from the days set millennia before the Skywalker saga to the far future in the Legacy era. It's a daunting topic to be sure. Really makes Bane's idea to wipe the slate clean seem like a good one, huh? Let's break it all down. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Emery, content creator here at Uchini, and I'll be your guide to the history of Sith in Legends. Now, each of these eras is going to be filled with some spoilers from that era, but we'll make sure to call those out before we jump into it. With that said, let's jump into the ancient history of the Sith in Legends. If a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away wasn't enough for you, don't worry, because the expanded universe will take you back much farther. Before the Sith were decrepit old men sitting on thrones waxing poetic about galactic domination and whatnot, while commanding black-clad, menacing androids, the Sith were a red-skinned, tentacle-faced species. Hailing from Korriban, the Sith species predated the Republic by about 75,000 years. The Sith Order formed about 7,000 BBY when a seditious band of dark Jedi sought out the Sith species in order to learn more about the dark side of the Force. Among them was Ajunta Pall, who established a Sith empire throughout the galaxy, and the term Dark Lords of the Sith was coined. Then came the Golden Age of the Sith. One individual is to credit, or to blame, for much of the legacy and strife of the Sith in the age to come, Marka Ragnos. Around 5000 BBY, Marka Ragnos ruled the Sith Empire, ushering in the Golden Age of the Sith. Ragnos ruled the galaxy for over 100 years, but his death marked a schism among the Sith. Naga Sato and Ludo Kresh carved up the empire in a way reminiscent of Caesar's Roman Empire. Marka Ragnos' ghost came back and proclaimed that the most worthy should rule. Naga Sato ultimately won the duel and waged war against the Republic, but were thwarted after attacking Coruscant. That conflict surrounding Sato's rise to power and the downfall of the Golden Age of the Sith is the Great Hyperspace War. Then, after 600 years of obscurity, the Sith legacy continued under a disenchanted Jedi who was passed over for knighthood by his masters for his arrogance, Freedon Nod. He eventually established the Sith by checking off all the usual boxes, discovering a long-forgotten Sith holocron, making the pilgrimage to Yavin 4, unleashing all of that previously suppressed Jedi angst. Then came the Great Sith War. The Sith were reborn under the leadership of dejected Jedi Exar Kun. Power-hungry and corrupted by Naga Sato's Force ghost, Exar Kun's legacy looms large in Legends storytelling. When it was all said and done, Kun was defeated and imprisoned on Yavin 4, only to be reawakened by Luke Skywalker's scrappy little Jedi Academy 4,000 years later. Most of the Sith lore we've talked about so far is contained within the Dark Horse comic series Tales of the Jedi. It's some of the most expansive enrichment to the Star Wars saga ever conceived, and definitely recommend that if you want to dive more into all of these old Sith stories that we're talking about. From there, let's dive into the Knights of the Old Republic and Beyond era. So building off the characters that were established in Tales of the Jedi, BioWare's 2003 Knights of the Old Republic told the tale of friends enemies Revan and Malak. The pair of former Jedi led a rebellious contingent of knights against the conquering armies of Mandalore the Great. Ultimately, however, they turned to the dark side, taking control of the ancient Rakatan superweapon, the Starforge, and conquering the galaxy in the name of the Sith. Eventually, Revan was captured by Jedi, brainwashed, and turned against Malak in a conflict known as the Jedi Civil War. The power vacuum resulting created the Sith Triumvirate and the First Jedi Purge. That story is contained in Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. One last Jedi survivor, the Jedi Exile, stood against the Triumvirate, ultimately re-establishing the Jedi's connection to the Force, taking down the Sith, and re-establishing the Jedi Order. Then comes the rise of Darth Bane. Darth Bane established the rule of two, the philosophy redefining the Sith Order as a whole and paving the way for Darth Sidious's rule over the Empire. So how did the rule of two come about? That story is primarily told in the Darth Bane trilogy by Drew Karpyshyn, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest sagas ever recorded in Star Wars history, by the way. Another excellent entry in the story of the Sith and Bane's grand plan is Darth Plagueis by James Luceno. Ever heard that tragedy? It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. Plagueis details the Sith on the precipice of prominence, with the titular Sith Lord overthrowing his master, choosing a new apprentice, plus the origins of Maul, Dooku, the Grand Army of the Republic, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Bane's grand plan comes to fruition when Darth Sidious purges the galaxy of the Jedi Order and converts the Republic into the Galactic Empire. But how did he get there? His journey from timid darkside recruit to Dark Lord of the Sith is also detailed in Darth Plagueis. After 1,000 years of preparation, Palpatine finally ascends the throne in Revenge of the Sith. And by the way, we highly recommend Matthew Stover's masterpiece of a novelization if you want to continue your reading of the Sith in Legends. Ultimately, Darth Sidious takes control of the galaxy with his army of stormtroopers, but his arrogance is his undoing, perfectly balanced as all things should be. The Force called upon Luke Skywalker, who, through his faith in his friends and sacrificial love for his father, overthrows Palpatine and puts an end to the Empire. Sort of. There was a clone or two to deal with, plus Imperial warlords vying for power, but ultimately the Sith were vanquished. For a time. Which brings us to the Legacy era. In this era, we're going to have spoilers for the Legacy of the Force series, so if you haven't read it and don't want to be spoiled, pause the video here. After a decade's absence from the galactic stage, the next Sith to take up the Darth mantle was Darth Caedus. After experiencing an existential crisis at the hands of the Yuuzhan Vong, Jacen Solo succumbed to the dark side in Legacy of the Force Betrayal. He was trained by a presumed dead Dark Jedi from the old school Marvel comics, Luke Skywalker's former android girlfriend with a turban and light whip, Lumia. Jacen took on the title of Darth Caedus after slaying his aunt and former Jedi Master Mara Jade. Ultimately, he was slain by his own sister Jaina Solo, the Sword of the Jedi. Beyond the Legacy era is the lost tribe of the Sith. Now, this tribe crash-landed on the planet Kresh during the Great Sith War, but re-emerged in the Fate of the Jedi series. Teenage Sith apprentice Vestara Kai eventually gets romantically entangled with Ben Skywalker, and her dad team up with Ben and Luke against the Force-devouring foe Abeloth. Sith aren't especially known for playing nice with Jedi, however, so, what could go wrong? Not to be outdone by Bane's rule of two, however, Asherad Het, the Dragon of the Sith, aka Darth Krayt, established the rule of one and sat atop the throne of galactic domination. The Legacy comics from Dark Horse from creative duo John Ostrander and Jan Duursema told the continuation of the Star Wars story about 100 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. When it was all said and done, Krayt was overthrown by a reluctant Skywalker descendant on his own hero's journey, spice-addicted, womanizing, gunslinging Cade Skywalker. It's a great series, absolutely worth the read. There is one more, though briefer, Legacy comic series. Legacy 2 followed Anya Solo in her battle against Darth Red. So that's the history of Sith across Legends. But if you're into the historical side of things, be sure to check out some of our other historical pieces on Youtini.com, including the history of the Jedi and history of the expanded universe. We've also got reading guides on quite a few of the Darths that were contained here. And of course, if you're interested in diving deeper into any of these stories, check out the books that we recommended for each section. Thanks for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.